I'm in the absolute peak performance of my entire life. I've extended my lifespan over 30%, reduced my age by 12 years, increased muscle and strength, and now 6 months of perfect sleep. I've accomplished the best sleep score in history. But if an algorithm could manage your health and wellness for you and achieve near perfect health, would you opt into that? I legitimately have never been happier in my entire life.
Why?
It's like when you have a series of bad nights of sleep and you're eating poorly and you sleep poorly, in a week or two, you just normalize to that new norm. You don't realize what you've lost. It just becomes invisible to you. And then when you bounce back after a really great night's sleep and you take care of yourself, you make the observation, this is the most remarkable thing ever. I wish I could exist like this all the time. And I've hit that state where I'm in the absolute peak performance of my entire life. I've never been as well rested. I've never been as with greater clarity of mind. I've never been more calm emotionally. I'm not provoked. I'm not irritable. Things that I struggled with before.
People that don't know what the word priming means, essentially, if you just say those words to somebody, if you say grandmother or grandfather or elderly associated words to somebody, in studies, they then walk slower.
Reliable, high quality sleep is achievable. And that if you do that, it could potentially give you the best cognitive and emotional performance of your life. And if you want to be respected by your peers, and if you want to achieve mythology-like status, you do that sleep deprivation thing. The person who prioritizes sleep is going to be higher performing. They'll be more lucid. They'll have better ideas. The people who don't sleep are literally half dead. They're actually intoxicated. They're impaired, are sleep deprived. To a certain degree, it is equal to being intoxicated by alcohol. I'm going to measure every biological process in my body and find out where every cell is aging, like where dying is happening. And then I'm going to identify all those behaviors, and I'm going to try to eliminate every behavior that contributes to don't dying. So what is possible in 2023 for the ultimate effort of don't die on every front? And that means no excuses ever for anything. So a 6-month sleep score, like you basically have to say, this is in stone. It's not going to be changed under any circumstance because I'm trying to prove a point of what could be done with the science in this moment. But in this moment, you may miss out on the most spectacular existence in all of history. So why do that for some cheap thrill?
What's that spectacular existence I might miss out on?
People are not familiar that nighttime erections are actually a meaningful health indicator.
And so you've been measuring your nighttime erections?
I have.
And what have you found out, and how have you been able to improve it?
Yeah, my average right now is 2 hours and 12 minutes.
So you're erect at night for 2 hours and 12 minutes?
Yes. For me to be equal to an 18-year-old, I would need 3 hours and 30 minutes
Interesting.
of nighttime erections. So that's the goal we're trying to achieve.
And the muscles are being broken down and regenerated from the electric shock?
Yeah. We've
Feels like
increased.
cheating. Friends that have got libido issues and sexual health issues and things like that. So we joke about it, but it's not a joke for a lot of people, and it can lead to relationships breaking down and families breaking down. And so I do think it's a serious topic. And if this therapy can help people get their erections back and bring their sex life back, then that's an amazing thing.
As you age, your body becomes less firm and more saggy, right? Across muscle, skin, penis, like you just lose structure across your entire body. And it's improved the structure. And so the air quality in my house is pristine. In Los Angeles, the air quality is not great. And so I typically will avoid significant outdoor activities on days where the air quality is particularly bad, but I'm always aware of it. So I have monitors in my house that tell me the outdoor air quality and the indoor air quality in every room.
What's the harm that you're trying to avoid?
There's a few things that are very damaging, and they can get lodged, for example, in your lungs, and it's very hard to get it out. So there's a lot of sustained damage that's just hard to undo.
If things look okay from the outside, things must be okay on the inside too. And so I had a lot of people saying to me, oh, you surely must be healthy because, you look healthy, so you must be fine. My baseline fitness testing, for example, put me on an average of age 60 or age 70, just based on my flexibility, my strength, my, cardiovascular health, all those kinds of things. And then my blood work, for example, a few things came back off, which is to be expected, like my vitamin D and my zinc, which is easy to fix. But then my oxidized LDL came back high, which is extremely concerning because I'm only 27 years old. And these are the kinds of flags that you see early on that can lead to things like stroke or, a buildup in your arteries that can lead to really serious health consequences. So there were a couple things in those like baseline tests, for example, that had a red flag. Then throughout the process, I would say that it's because all of a sudden you're given this huge task of looking after yourself to perfection, you come face to face with the things that are in the way of your of living a better life. So your self-destructive tendencies. And so for me, like day one, I had like 3 different existential crisis like moments, where my whole life crumbled down because you come face to face with things that are in your way that you had never had to deal with before.
Like what?
So, Brian talks about evening Brian, the Brian that, overate between 5 and 7 p.m. or 10 p.m. Every night. For me, it was Priority Kate. I didn't realize before I did Blueprint that my whole life has been structured around helping other people and never focusing on myself. It was like I was completely blind to the fact that any opportunity I get, I would deflect from myself and be like, how are you doing? What can I do for you? Because I realized that I didn't have a relationship with self where if other people couldn't see it, I just neglected it. So in like little things, it meant that I would schedule meetings back to back and I wouldn't make time to, use the restroom or eat or have proper sleep. And then 10 p.m. would roll around and I'd finish work and the only thing that was left open was McDonald's, and so that's what I would eat for dinner. Mm-hmm. Or, if I committed to hang out with them on a weekend, there was no way I was going to, say that I can't do that anymore just to get enough sleep, because ultimately I cared more about the other people's perceptions than my own actual well-being.
People pleaser.
Yes, people pleaser, big time.
And to do Blueprint, it sounds like it's the antithesis of people pleasing.
In this process, I've slowly learned that I am functioning better and I can actually do more of that people pleasing in a weird way anyway by looking after myself first. I'm straightforward. Everything improved pretty much across the board. So my restorative sleep increased by 19% in 30 days. My flexibility improved, my strength improved, like my leg press one rep max went from 220 pounds to 360 pounds in 30 days. I did VO2 max testing, so my body's ability to use oxygen. When I first did it at the start of the 30 days, I was put at the 51st percentile. So if you look at like an age graph, you'd be able to predict exactly what age I am. That was spot on average. And then after 30 days, I had increased into the top 7% of fitness for my age and gender, which is huge for me because I'm someone who has never exercised a day in my life before this. I'd never gone on runs. I hated the gym. I'd never been trained in the gym. It was just something that was like the antithesis of anti-Kate, So yeah, huge changes on my end. And my blood work improved. We're still waiting on my oxidized LDL to come back, but generally everything looks really good.
And she was willing to share the entirety of her internal experience. So she didn't try to camouflage any of her pain. She didn't try to be tougher than she was. She was just open and transparent about the entire process. And I think that people around us, the entire team, and those observing drew a lot of inspiration because she was open about everything and about what she was struggling with internally. And she was willing to step into the problem. Like she didn't miss a single day.
Zonked after being on the road for 3 days or something like that. And I was like, I gotta go exercise now, guys. And everyone was like, what? But that's the thing, like, my data, it demanded it. My body demanded it. And so I was gonna do it. It wasn't about, what I wanted in that moment or not. So it is a very intense thing to commit to. I mean, I would say I'm working a lot of the time. Like I'm a grind culture child. Like I really did throw myself into it. So I would say that's probably the thing that changed the most. On the socializing thing, like my friends have been so accommodating. We'd go out for brunch still and I would bring my Blueprint tin and just sit at the table while, other people were having their, maybe their mimosas with orange juice in it. Halfway through my 30-day period, I started to really not feel great. And I would watch my heart rate. As you get better exercise, your fitness improves, it's harder to get your heart rate up. And I was going against this metric of, I need to get my heart rate over 173 beats per minute to hit this vigorous heart rate zone to get my markers up. And I was pushing myself. I was, I documented all throughout YouTube channel and whatnot, but I was at this point where I was crying on the weekend, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I think I have to give up because I just couldn't get my heart rate up. And it took me a second to realize that Priority Kate had snuck in again, but in this really subtle, backdoor kind of way where I was holding myself to this expectation of I needed to do these very intense things so I could prove to the public that I can do this. I'm going to be, this Blueprint XX. When in reality, the Blueprint way is actually stop, look at the data. And if I had done that, I really would have seen that my HIV was down, my recovery was down, like my body was asking for a break, but my conscious mind was stepping in and saying, you need to prioritize the viewpoint of others and how they're going to think of you and make sure you just hit these goals regardless of what the data says. So I think that, to answer your question, if I'm people pleasing in that way, I just get in my own way. I want to have the opportunity to live, be able to spend each minute living as much as possible. And so that's what this is for me.
I don't think we know what we're talking about.
Okay, fair enough.
I
do understand what you're saying.
I think I lose everybody. Like, Kate is a much more relatable person. Like, she says things and people are like, that's sensible, and I understand that. And I say something, people are like, I really am trying very hard to be more understandable, to be more relatable.
I always come back to on whether or not this is the right decision for me, as in Blueprint, is who's doing a better job of looking after Kate? Is it current Kate or past Kate? And I would argue that even if it's only a marginal improvement, it's worth taking this step toward looking after oneself just a little bit better. I almost never try to optimize for happiness.
When Brian sat down, he said, I'm the happiest I've ever been.
Yeah.
Is this the happiest you've ever been?
Yes. Kate always is biased to saying that Kate is always the happiest in any given moment. Kate is generally a very optimistic and happy person.
So first, I don't trust any of my own responses, but I trust even less other people's responses who are half dead. When they're not sleeping well, when they have bad habits, they aren't thinking clearly. We know this from science that you become inebriated. And so that's why when I think about humanity, like, are we actually of the right mind of clarity to say anything about our wants and desires? And I think we're all just drunk on addiction, and we just can't see our way through this thing. And so when we say, I want this or I want that or whatever, I don't believe it. We're not in our best mind state right now, and I don't trust our own judgment. And it's hard for us to comprehend that, because we have to trust ourselves on a day-to-day basis doing these things, and to take a step back and be like, could I be wrong about basically everything? It takes so much courage to even contemplate. And it's offensive to most people's minds, but really I think it's where we are best to be there to question all these things. And for the past few years, I've been endeavoring to build the world's best anti-aging protocol, and to do so, becoming the most measured person in history. What I'm going to show you today is my daily exercise protocol. The science is pretty straightforward and pretty basic. I'm trying to achieve being in zone 2 through 4 for my heart rate, roughly 4.5 hours per week. For zone 5, which is 159 beats per minute and above, I'm between 90 and 150 minutes per week. Outside of that, weight training is useful. Having a high VO2 max, which is your body's ability to use oxygen, is also great. But generally, it's pretty straightforward and it's pretty basic. The short of it is I was never taught good posture. And so I maintained posture that had me in a way that was restricting my blood flow in my veins. And so in correcting for my posture, I learned that it takes a lot of muscle and a lot of attention and diligence to maintain proper posture. I just feel great when I work out on a daily basis. When I don't, I really miss it. Any further, and I realize how tight that whole thing is. I think the stretching is probably my favorite part of my daily routine. It just helps me feel so limber of mind and of body. So on this one, a couch flex, a couch stretch. I love it. Every day I feel how much it creeps in terms of the stiffness from sitting and whatnot. And then I really like to lunge forward. It's a really nice stretch. I do it every day, very satisfying. And now I love this position. When I hang out with Talmage, as you maybe have seen in my videos, I love to be in this position. And really feel the stretch deep in the hip flexor. I remember growing up in high school, I would hit the gym, as part of my athletic training, we never did this sort of thing. I appreciate these stretches. It just makes my body feel fresh. It is between 45 and 60 minutes. I take no break in the entire thing. I just move from one thing to another. My body is apparently repairing itself adequately to my exercise protocol. Number two is I find it energizing. I just think it's really fun to move about. I've had a few people come work out with me and they'll comment that I get more done in 45 minutes than a lot of people do in like 5 or 6 hours. I move very fast. All the data is reporting I'm doing really well across the entire board. So again, I'm really proud of my 58.7 VO2 max score. It's extraordinary for my age. And so I'm very happy. That is a great marker for to capture the entirety of not only my exercise protocol, but my sleep and diet, just overall fitness. And I'll maintain around 130, 140 range. I'll try to maintain great posture with my back straight. It's easy to kind of get in like this. So really have to work to keep the posture right. So posture is like a constant battle every day, all day. Even though I try, I'll frequently see myself on camera and think, oh man, I thought I was trying, I thought I was maintaining proper posture and it still doesn't look good. So it's also exhilarating. So it's right there where The Fountain of Youth is a story as old as humanity. And typically it's a group of people on a boat going to a jungle in some sacred temple and some elixir.
The clarity in your skin, the vibrancy in your eyes, I don't know, the externally visible markers of health really do, like, it does something to my brain to be like, oh, this person looks healthy.
We are prone to eat too much food or of the wrong kind of food or drink or other substances, or spend too much time consuming content, not prioritizing sleep. Stop self-destructive behavior and get good sleep. Like, you don't even have to eat vegetables, berries, and nuts. Like, that would be an advanced thing. Just stop doing things that hurt you, because when you do things that cause self-destructive behavior, it's so hard. That ruins your sleep, which then ruins your willpower to be able to do good things. It's just a vicious cycle. So sleep well, stop bad behaviors, and it gets you in a neutral position to feel like you can start doing some positive things in your life and gain some momentum. It's ironically,
I want that on my tombstone. Like, I really want people, if I die and you don't solve this problem fast enough. Their food was really hard to come by, and if you came by something that was calorically dense, that you were gonna go after it as hard as you could, remove the breaks as much as possible, overeat, overconsume.
It was 7 p.m. Brian. That was the disaster. He would overeat, eat the wrong kind of stuff, then I wouldn't be able to sleep, and I felt awful the next day. And so it helped for me to think about this. We think of ourselves as the most intelligent species on this planet, yet we have behaviors that accelerate disease and aging and misery, and cloud our minds, and they dampen our conscious experience. Yet, even though we do these things, we've normalized it to make it okay, where we celebrate it, we encourage it. If it's a social norm that's challenged, we try to ostracize a person or make them feel like they're out of step. And if we can muster up the greatest sobriety possible about this, it's a little insane we commit self-destructive behavior.
The times I have done it, I wasn't like, I'm so fucking cool. I was like, this is a trade-off, and I am diminishing future potential for today pleasure. You had one Brian, 7 p.m. Brian, that was causing a lot of self-harm for all the other Brians. I'm gonna read data from all 78 organs, but I'm going to read the data from these 78 organs, and that's gonna tell me what behavior, God, would you say can and can't do, ought and ought not to do? Like, what word do you use there?
So I committed these self-destructive behaviors. When my mind wanted a pizza party and drinks, my kidney wasn't asking for that, and my liver wasn't, and all my DNA methylation wasn't. And so there was a war within me going on, this misalignment. And I had to figure out, how could I achieve world peace inside of me? I trained as a pilot. I got my license as a pilot in multiple airplanes. Even though I'm a competent pilot, I'm never as good as a professional pilot. They do it every day. They think about it day in, day out. They just have higher levels of skill than when I jump in and jump out. Night and day. When they don't have anything to think about, they're thinking about this. Civilization advances by the number of important operations it can automate without the person thinking about it. And if I contemplate what are the most majestic games my conscious mind could play, eating this food is among the most delightful experiences of my entire day. I love every second of it. Solved in my life. I don't spend 40% of my day thinking about what I'm going to eat, or trying to order what I'm going to eat, or it's all just built into a system so I can have my mind pointed in somewhere else. And if we look at ourselves in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, we might look back and say, that was obvious. Like, why did we sacrifice ourselves for this technological advancement? Why did we just drive ourselves into the ground? Why did we encourage each other to do all these self-destructive things? Why did we allow it to happen in ourselves? How is this doing? And it's working. Like, it basically has tuned my body to near perfect health. I'm repulsed by Cold Stone ice cream.
You take that back. You take that back right now. Cold Stone ice cream is delicious. Tom Hanks once said, when he was losing all the weight for Castaway, he said, it got to the point where I didn't want to eat a chocolate cake. You didn't have to tell me. He was like, the idea was disgusting.
Yeah, chip or something. And I grabbed one and I put it in my mouth, and it just, I could taste the chemicals.
Yeah.
It was almost like eating gasoline. So you would probably say you can't imagine life not doing it. You
after eating this
feel
one,
that good.
I think I have to do this. Strawberries make everything taste good. That's nice, man. Now, do you have anybody doing the blueprint on meat?
My son does.
Interesting.
Yeah, he is identical in everything except for he has chicken with his super veggie.
And his markers going in the right direction.
My heart couldn't speak up. My lungs couldn't speak up. My kidney couldn't speak up. My mind did whatever it wanted, whenever it wanted, and however it wanted. And the moment its authority is challenged, it throws an absolute fit. And I saw this when I fired Evening Brian. I said, okay, Brian from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. or 10 p.m., he has no control. He absolutely, he eats way too much food. He's a very serious problem. And I started implementing that. I would write at 5, and then he would show up, and he'd be like, just today, or just a little bit. And then when the answer came back, no, that version of Brian was on the floor, throwing a tantrum, punching holes in the wall, kicking and screaming, desperate for control. And so I saw this behavior inside. I saw this whole argument happening inside of me as I screamed for control. This unfair relationship with selves, but we desperately defend it. Even though it drives us to early death, even though it drives us to aging disease. And the only way I could solve my own problem, you know what? You're right. I have this nuanced relationship with myself. I have these different versions of myself. I'm not happy with all the different versions. Some of them I actually don't want in me anymore.
Two huge takeaways, really. One is no surprise. It's that if you take care of your physical health, It has huge benefits for not just for your longevity, but for how long you stay healthy. Eating well, getting regular exercise, not abusing alcohol or drugs, not smoking, getting preventive health care. Exercise is hugely important.
They found that people who exercised just 15 minutes a day had a 14% reduced risk of dying and a 3-year longer life expectancy. Every additional 15 minutes of exercise decreased the risk of dying by an extra 4%. A large meta-analysis from 2008 confirms that people who are physically active have a reduced risk of dying during the time frames investigated in each study. Exercise also protects our cognitive health. A meta-analysis from 2014 found that participants with higher levels of physical activity had a 35% reduced risk of cognitive decline and a 14% reduced risk of dementia.
And then the big surprising finding is relationships not just keeping us happier, but keeping us healthier and helping us live longer.
They found that on average, people with stronger social connections had a 50% increased likelihood of survival for any given year.
Being married, in particular, has a large impact on how long people live.
There's one study, I think it's pretty well respected, that suggests that married men live 12 years longer on average than unmarried men, and married women live 7 years longer on average than unmarried women. Marriage is always a better deal for men on all parameters than it is for women. And it's not because you have a marriage license, right? It's because people living together in an intimate partnership tend to keep each other healthier. You have somebody who's kind of watching, looking out for you. It's a very real, concrete effect, was that being lonely is as dangerous to your health as smoking half a pack of cigarettes a day, or as dangerous as being obese.
Poor social relationships were associated with a 29% increase in risk of heart disease and a 32% increase in risk of stroke.
The UK has appointed a minister of loneliness, actually needing a lot of solitude and not wanting a lot of people. A lot of people are stressful for introverts. And what we know is that neither one is healthier, right? Like introverts are perfectly healthy. They just may need 1 or 2 really solid relationships and don't want a lot more people.
Or even whether you're married or not, because a bad marriage can be worse for your health than getting divorced. Instead, it's about the quality of your close relationships that matters.
When we followed all the original people out to their 80s, we said, okay, what data actually are the best predictors at age 50 of who's going to be happy and healthy at age 80, as opposed to sick or dead? And we thought we were going to be looking at blood pressure and cholesterol level at age 50 as the strongest predictors. It was their relationships. It was particularly their satisfaction with their marital relationships that was the strongest predictor.
And relationships don't just keep us happier and physically healthier, they also protect our brains. People who are in secure relationships in their 80s, where they feel that they can rely on the other person, find that their memories stay sharper for longer. A study of retired US adults found that the rate of cognitive decline was 20% higher over 10 years for those who felt lonely, finding that it also increased the risk of dementia.
Is that relationships are emotion regulators. They're stress regulators. So stressful things happen every day to many of us, right? So then what happens? Well, the body goes into fight or flight mode. Blood pressure goes up, respirations become more rapid, circulating stress hormone levels rise. But then the body is meant to go back to equilibrium after that normal fight or flight response when we face a challenge. If I can come home and there's somebody here to talk to, I can literally feel my body calm down. What we're pretty sure happens is that people who are isolated, that they're more likely to stay in a kind of chronic fight or flight mode. And that what that means is that they have higher levels of circulating cortisol, higher levels of chronic inflammation, and that those things gradually wear away body systems. So that's how, for example, chronic stress can predict coronary artery disease, but also arthritis. and also type 2 diabetes because of this common mechanism that breaks down multiple body systems.
The key to preventing this breakdown is simple. Just spend a little more time with the people you care about.
Social engagement with friends decreased from 60 minutes a day in 2003 to just 20 minutes a day in 2020.
The technology has fundamentally changed how we interact with one another and how we communicate with one another, and unfortunately has often replaced what used to be rich in-person connections with online connections, which often are of lower quality.
Similar to other studies, they found that the subjective feeling of loneliness increased the risk of premature death by 26%. But they also looked at the objective measure of social isolation, how much time you're actually spending with other people. And they found that social isolation increased the risk of premature death by 29%. And unfortunately, introverts are more at risk of being socially isolated. Just like many young people today, many participants from the Harvard study also believed that money and achievement were what they should go after to have a good life. But what this study and plenty of others show is that the people who were the happiest were those that leaned into their relationships with their partner, friends, family, and community.
Many people said that they were proudest of something to do with their relationships. So it could be, I was a good boss, I was a good parent, I was a good friend, I was a good mentor. Nobody said, I made a fortune, right? Nobody even said, I won the Nobel Prize, which a few people did. It wasn't about those badges of achievement, right, that we think of as, oh, that's what we got to get to feel like we've had a meaningful life. Everybody looking back mentioned their relationships. The biggest regret was, particularly among the men, because this was the World War II generation, they said, I wish I hadn't spent so much time at work. I wish I had spent more time with the people I care about.
So he wrote, there was no evidence for an experienced well-being plateau above $75,000 a year, contrary to some influential past research. And the real twist is that those who were the happiest to start with stand to gain the most with increasing income.
Right? But the people who were best at relationships were the people who made it a practice, day after day, week after week, to stay connected to the people they cared about. To talk on the phone, to go for walks, to have coffee, to do whatever, to play basketball. The people who took those actions, that they were no good at relationships, that they were never going to have happy lives, and then it changed. Have a good marriage and was kind of distant from his kids, didn't have any friends. And then when he retired, he joined a gym and he found this group of friends that became, for the first time, a kind of tribe for him.
I knew that I had to eat somewhere around 3,000 calories to start putting on weight, but after months of stuffing myself daily with what I thought was well over 3,000 calories of food, I still wasn't putting on any weight. And it wasn't until I actually took the time to sit down and track the calories that I was eating on a daily basis that I realized that I was actually under-eating by around 500 calories. Hence why I was constantly stuck at the same weight and failing to pack on more size. Especially when you ideally want at least 80% or so of these calories to come from whole, nutritious foods as opposed to junk. To best help you with this though, here's a few tips that I'd recommend incorporating. First, rather than increasing the actual calorie content and volume of your meals, research has shown that increasing your eating frequency is the more effective option if you want to increase your daily calorie intake without impacting your appetite as much. For instance, this study found that if you have a 300-calorie snack after lunch, you'll naturally eat around 100 fewer calories for dinner, resulting in a quote-unquote accidental gain of 200 calories with minimal stress on your stomach or appetite. And for you, this can be as simple as incorporating high-calorie yet nutritious snacks between your meals, such as trail mix, for example, which can easily bump up your calorie intake considerably without impacting your appetite by much. Next, it's vital that you make your diet less filling by choosing foods that are less satiating. So contrary to my past video I did on the best meals for fat loss, where I recommended to start eating the most filling foods based on a satiety index developed from a 1995 study, in your case, you'd instead want to avoid these highly filling foods such as potatoes, fish, and oats as much as possible, and instead opt for less filling yet still calorie-dense foods such as white pasta, rice, muesli, and bananas, for example, as these will be the most effective foods for you to use to bump up your calorie intake without affecting your appetite as much. And lastly, although we know the importance of protein for muscle recovery and growth, we also know that protein has been consistently found to be the most satiating of the 3 macronutrients. In fact, a 2005 paper found that when subjects increased their protein intake from 15% of their daily calories to 30%, they subconsciously decreased their daily calorie intake by roughly 441 calories a day as a result of the increase in fullness they now felt. Meaning that if you're struggling to eat enough calories, then you'll want to minimize your protein intake relative to your carb and your fat intake. And to properly do this, we know based on a recent meta-analysis that a protein intake of roughly 0.72 grams per pound of body weight is enough to maximize your gains. So in your case, rather than eating a ton of protein and going way beyond this minimum, which will just result in increased fullness, simply aim to hit this minimum protein intake daily and then utilize more carbs and fats instead of protein to boost your calorie intake, as doing so will minimize the fullness that you feel and make it easier for you to ingest enough calories. Now the last step has to do with tracking and adjusting your plan accordingly. And there's 3 things that you want to track, which will then determine what you need to adjust. First, you want to track your morning body weight every day and take a weekly average of it at the end of every week. If after a month you haven't gained any weight or you fail to hit your goal weight gain of roughly 1% of your body weight per month, then this is an indication that you'll just need to bump up your calories slightly by ingesting some extra carbs and or fats, for example.
Hard. And the reason why is because 1, we have the highest metabolism ever, and number 2, our appetites suck. So while it's not easy, here are my best tips to getting the calories in. First, calorie dense meals, such as pesto pasta. This bowl of pesto pasta here has 1200 calories in. Imagine you get one of these down you every night. The problem with that is these foods aren't as calorie dense, so you need to eat higher volumes of them, and my appetite just couldn't do that. Tip number 2 for getting the calories in, liquid calories. This is a game changer. You see, drinking 1000 calories is a hell of a lot easier than eating 1000 calories. Let me introduce you to the Phaser Shake. This is a high calorie shake I made a couple years ago. It contains 1000 calories. Here are the ingredients if you want to make it yourself. I created this shake a while back and honestly it saved me full up. So here's my tips to increasing your appetite. Tip number 1, a very, very simple one. Drink a lot of water. If you want to eat more, you need to train your stomach to expand. Drinking water does that. It expands the stomach, meaning you can physically get more food inside of you. Tip number 2 for increasing your appetite. Set a 5-minute timer. Now let me explain. When you eat, most of the time you have distractions, such as your mobile phone, the TV, books, etc. This results in you eating your meal slower. The slower it is to eat, the more time the brain has to realize how much food it's consuming, and then it's going to tell your body that it's full up. But if you cut out all your distractions and just purely focus on getting your meal down as fast as possible, you can eat more before your brain starts to realize that it's getting full. So for all your meals, put your headphones on, get a banging tune on, and then set a 5-minute timer.
Number 1, make mega shakes. Now, this isn't an individual food, but it's one of the best ways to get many high-quality calories into your body fast. Here's an example of a mega shake with a lot of protein and calories. Fill your blender with whole milk, whey protein, peanut butter, oats, banana, and blueberries. A shake like this alone will be the reason you finally start gaining weight. But if your primary goal is to gain weight, drinking fruit juices high in carbohydrates is a reliable way to increase your total calorie intake. Number 3, eat more low-fiber fruits. This strategy is a win-win in many ways. Increasing fruit intake increases micronutrient intake, which can improve overall health if there are deficiencies in your diet. These fruits taste amazing and will keep you hydrated. The key when bulking is to consume low-fiber fruits since fiber is satiating, meaning it makes you feel full. Here are examples of low-fiber fruits that taste great. Fruit juices without pulp, canned fruit, cantaloupe, honeydew melon, watermelon, nectarines, papayas, peaches, plums. These low-fiber fruits are an easy way to consume more calories throughout the day. Just pack a few of these fruits with you and set a reminder to eat one every so often. Number 4, make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Here's a snack where we're purposely not including protein. Why? Because protein, like fiber, is very satiating. Again, meaning it makes you feel full. There are plenty of opportunities to consume enough protein in your main meals when you're bulking. This sandwich is a simple way to get more calories in your meal in a great tasting way. It's also worth mentioning that it's a very convenient option to take with you when you're on the go. If you don't have time to get a meal in, a PB&J will get the job done. Number 5, drink chocolate milk. By now, you probably feel like we're taking you back to elementary school with these. Well, guess what? You were growing then, and you're growing now. Drinking a 1-liter carton of chocolate milk, even at 1% reduced fat, has a whopping 664 calories with 35 grams of protein. If you're bulking at 4,000 calories, that's almost 1/5 of your total calorie intake just drinking some great tasting chocolate milk. And if you're in the groove of bulking, you'll be able to finish a 1-liter carton in the same length of time it takes you to watch this video. Number 6, eat more avocados. Keeping your healthy fat intake up along with consistent resistance training will help optimize your testosterone and free testosterone levels. These increases can give you small benefits as a natural lifter, but more importantly, improve your overall mood and sex drive. Avocados also contain healthy monounsaturated fat, along with many other beneficial nutrients for your overall health. One medium-sized avocado can have up to 350 calories in it. Add avocados to your egg breakfast in the morning to keep your total calorie and testosterone levels up. Number 7, eat more cereal. Eating breakfast cereals mixed with whole milk is another quick and easy way to consume more calories. Here's the thing, you don't have to eat these at breakfast. Feel free to grab a bowl of cereal any time of the day. Again, cereal high in fiber like Raisin Bran is going to be more filling. Fiber is excellent to keep you regular, but it can also cause bloating if you consume too much of it. More refined cereals are easier to get down. Keep a couple boxes of your favorite cereal around and use them as a snack. You can also add cereal to your Greek yogurt as a high-protein meal. Number 8, make heavy-duty oatmeal. Oatmeal is a staple in most bodybuilders' diets. But oatmeal doesn't have to just be oats mixed with water in a bowl and thrown in the microwave. You can add a lot to your oatmeal, as we did with the Mega Shakes earlier in this video. Add peanut butter, blueberries, chocolate chips, and honey. Not only does this add a ton of quality calories, but it tastes fantastic as well. A fast metabolism may feel like a pain in the ass when you're trying to put on size, but remember, you get to consume a ton of great tasting foods that others wish they